All right, good afternoon, everybody. I'm gonna try to go off the rip on this one here. I'm not gonna script this one. I just kind of want to go off the dome and talk a little bit about just kind of how, I don't know, I have a hot take. I've had a hot take. I don't know. There's a lot of you guys who know me. First off, let me start off. So my name is Chris Taylor, content creator. I don't make as much content as I should have been making. Shout out to Elder Dragon Society. But I, mostly it's because I'm lazy, but I've been playing a good amount of CEDH, trying to get back into the game, and I've had some thoughts. And a lot of people don't necessarily share a lot of my opinions, but my opinions have always been in the interest of the greater good, right? Like, I've always had the intention of creating the most fair and balanced competitive environment possible. Even at my previous job, I did a lot of stuff at my previous job dealing with competitive integrity and, making sure that that is being upheld when it comes to competition for esports and things of the like. And I just wanted to sit down and to kind of just have an open discourse with the whole of the CEDH community and to maybe see if we can all kind of meet in the middle with this issue that we've been having. And honestly, it pains me to even say this because of the, just incredible effort and the incredible growth that the format has seen since I've been out the game. I took a 5-year hiatus of the game, got back in recently a couple years ago, and I've been mostly just playing the bigger tournaments, and then dabbling a little bit online, but mostly just playing the bigger tournaments when I can get away from work and, get out there. But I fully had the intent this year, or since I found out about the Top Deck GG, Invitational and the championship this year, I was going to make it my business to grind out as much as possible, see if I could qualify for it and, try to get in and play. I'm a competitor, and it's always kind of been a thing where I wanted to try to, reach the top heights of CEDH, like many of us that are competing in these larger tournaments. But I do want to talk about first the competitive spirit, right? The competitive spirit is arguably the thing that drives us to play this format at the level that we play it at, right? We go to these big tournaments, we invest time, effort, energy, and money to play in these big tournaments to be the best, right? And I think with the whole wounded satellite situation and everything, and I'm not gonna get into mudslinging and talking crap about people or anything like that. That's not who I am. I generally just, keep it to myself or keep it in my circle if I got like a specific opinion. But my main issue that I have is actually, I'll give you a little anecdotal story here. I actually played in the Vegas SEG Con big tournament, the 8K, and I placed 13th, I believe, in that tournament. And on one of the little sidebar rounds, I had like a little small discourse with my man, and I tried to talk to him because some of the issues that I have with the larger tournaments and the organization of larger tournaments and, just kind of the way that the format is set up, right, for a large competitive event, right? I have some issues with it and issues with the general consensus of how the format needs to be played. So I brought up some of these things to him, and they were rebuffed immediately. And they were rebuffed because there are people who take advantage of these gaping holes in competitive integrity at a level where we're playing for these huge prizes, and it might not be the most money, couple G's, and, a little bit of money here and there in these bigger tournaments for these bigger prizes. Competitive integrity is paramount. It needs to be upheld. It's very important that when people are playing for these prizes, larger prizes, as the prizes get bigger and bigger, the push should be trying to get the format as competitively sound as possible as far as the rules, organization, and, the format. So that way we're elevating the format, right? And I just feel like there's a lot of people who are gatekeeping and honestly holding the format back for what it could truly be because they cannot let go of politics. in my personal opinion, and I'm gonna give you the hot take now, politics strictly belong at the kitchen table. And I know a lot of people love the politics. Myself, I love engaging with them. It's fun. It's table talk. But as soon as you move into that competitive environment, the politics have to stop, right? Like that's I know everybody loves it and I know it drives the game, but players don't need politics to win. The really good, the really hardcore players shouldn't need politics to be able to win a game. You don't have to say very much, if any, to win the game. We all know our decks. We should be knowing the format and the metagame, all the content people are ingesting, all the games people are playing. If you're at these high-level tournaments, you should know what you're encountering and be prepared for such, right? You should be prepared for it. And honestly, I don't think it belongs, but maybe we'll get into that a little bit more in the video. But I just wanted to start off first by kind of introducing myself, talking about a little bit of my history, and just kind of give you the preface of the hot take video here before we're gonna do it. So there's been a few things that have triggered this conversation. I've honestly been talking about putting this out there into the ether for at least a few months now, and certainly for years now. I've been trying to build the tournaments. So just to give you some context, in about 2018, I came up with a tournament for, I forget what the tournament, I think it was like Command Fest or something like that, like one of the first big Commander tournaments in Las Vegas. And I was hosting a side small tournament, just kind of trying out some new rules and everything that I liked the idea of, to like basically integrate, large tournaments into the whole tournament scene. Because a lot of the rules that we are dealing with, and frankly, the rules that we're kind of playing with now, they're very suited for the smaller tournaments. They're suited and it works just fine for the smaller tournaments, because the intention is to get the games over quicker, so that way the games don't drag on for forever, because we know they can last forever, especially with the politics, and to get the games done quickly, so that way the venue or wherever it is that you're playing can close up on time and not invest too much resources into people's playing for prizes, right? That's why we have a lot of the rules that we have today, in my opinion, right? And I think that there are a few different ways to kind of move and elevate the format, and to put it into a position where it's a little bit more competitively sound and fair and balanced for everyone, right? Now, I don't have all the kinks worked out, obviously, but there's just a few things, and I'm actually gonna pull it up here. Just one second. Let me get this and pull this up. I'm just looking for it on the computer here, and then we're gonna switch it up. All right, so here it is. I can link this post if anybody wants to, check it out, but I just kind of want to go over this before. This is just some of the things that I think, this is 5 years ago. This is arguably before any really large CEDH tournaments were being held. I was trying to be the first, and naturally, if you read the comment section, a bunch of people were apprehensive to this. They didn't think it was going to work. But then some years down the line, boom, here we go. We have competitive CEDH tournaments on a larger scale, and a lot of the same spirit of this document, kind of came to fruition, but nobody addressed the shortcomings and the smaller, issues that you would encounter by merging and melding a very casual format with a competitive frame, right? And there's always going to be some issues with that. And I think addressing those issues is how the game and competitive integrity and sportsmanship moves forward. So I think that's just worth talking about and bringing this up and maybe having a discourse and having a discussion. Because that's honestly all I'm trying to do here. I'm not bad-mouthing anybody. I'm not trashing anybody. I just want the format to be the best the format and the healthiest the format can be, and increase the longevity of the format that we all love and know, and we invest all our time, effort, and monies into throwing these rectangles around. So I do want to just highlight this review. So anyway, I'm a chatty Cathy. I'll talk a lot, but let me just kind of get to it. So the format was multiplayer Swiss, which is what we're doing right now. Nobody was doing Swiss at the time. And then we moved it, multiplayer with pods of the 4 players, 5 rounds with a cut to top 16. I wanted to do that first before anybody else, which, I did do it, but the turnout wasn't huge, right? Players with the highest cumulative points will be selected for the final seed, blah, 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 blah. We all know how Swiss works, right? Now, 5 rounds, same exact way. Each round lasts 75 minutes because they're trying to get them over quicker. But, we have 90-minute rounds right now. So, sure. And then it's in cases where the rounds go to time, all players currently get to complete their turns, with each player starting and finishing with the player who's active player when time is called. That means whoever is turn 0 will get 2 turns. After their second turn, the players with the highest life total will be placed in consecutive order, starting with the highest life total, right? In the event that the player is being tied with the highest life total, once a turn ends, you move into sudden death. The sudden death rule goes into effect, and the players whose life will be eliminated consecutively until a winner is determined, right? Or I worded that really terrible. Basically, what the point is that the first player's life total changes, they die effectively, right? So it kind of like puts you into a position where, okay, you've been playing for 75 minutes, or in our case, 90 minutes, and then everybody got 2 turns, 2 whole turn rounds to complete with caveats, right? And if you couldn't win the game after 2 turns in those 90 minutes, you go into sudden death. And the determining factor to find a very conclusive winner is if your life total changes, you die. Because realistically, that is the main measure that Magic the Gathering uses to determine who wins and who loses. Life total changes. Sure, we have alternate win conditions and things that you use to be able to win the game, but if we're looking at the core of the Magic the Gathering rules, life total matters. But in a world where everybody is running out ad nauseam and trying to draw your whole deck and do all this crazy stuff here, it's a resource. And that's literally what wins you the game, is card advantage, having more resources than your opponents, et cetera, et cetera. So I feel like it's a fair rule. Matches and points. Players will be assessed cumulative points during rounds based on when a player loses or exits the game. The total value of these points are as follows. If you win, you get 7 points. If you get second place, you get 5 points. If you get third place, you get 3 points. And if you get in fourth place, you get 1 point. And I believe the tie, if you tied and you drew a game somehow, like let's say, the game was a full stalemate, or if you ID, right? If you ID in that situation and, nobody has a ID, or, conclusively nobody actually wins. Let me do the math here really quick. Math is not my strong suit, but I do it. There's a total of 16 points. So if you divide the 16 points, everybody gets 4 points. So if there was an ID, everybody gets 4 points, right? 4 points, and that's what gets you there, 4 points. So, you would take all those total cumulative points here and then divide them by 4 if everybody drew. And there's some room, I'm sure, to be worked into that, but that was the way that I came up with it. Partially because of, and I'll get to my first point when it comes to these competitive tournaments. Competitive integrity can be compromised quite easily with intentional draws, right? If you're playing at a high level competitive tournament, the goal is to win. Win at any cost is probably not the right mentality. I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of people who are like, if you're not cheating, you're not trying, and if you're not trying to get any edge that you can to be able to win these games, that's a lot of people's mentalities, and I understand that. But at what cost? You run the risk of ruining the entire format and ruining a lot of the stuff that people have built just because you guys want to win. When just a little shift in your perspective and a little shift in your competitive ideology still puts you in that competitive realm and still gives you the opportunity to play your best, use every tool and utility at your disposal to be able to win, right? But not at the cost of anything sacred, right? Anyway, so let's move on. These points will accumulate during the 5 rounds, and your standings will be available to you. That's same old stuff. Using the multiplayer commander rules, registration was 25, 100% of the entry goes into the prize pool, so we weren't paying the judges or the TO or anything like that. I was the TO, and then I had a judge who was just there judging the event also. I'm not the best judge. Pretty good TO, not the best judge, but yeah. Anyway, so you deck register, your conduct and everything. Obviously, you have that for the Magic infraction procedures and stuff, which I really do like a lot of the, The idea was to play it at Comp REL, but I really like the idea of moving stuff up to Pro REL, but that's a whole other thing anyway. Additional rules have been added to this event to encourage sportsmanlike conduct during this event, right? In an effort to make sure all competitors are given a level playing field in regards to play and ensuring skill will be the determining factor. Key phrase, in games being fairly conducted. A few rules have been added and will be enforced along with the comp rules in the IPG, right? Now that's really clutch right there. Skill is supposed to be the determining factor of a game being won. It should not be your ability to politic. As soon as you bring an outside force or an outside factor into Commander, and yes, I know it is a social format, but when you allow politics, you are like just marginalizing the skill. And I know that's a really incensed statement, but as soon as you do that, it literally takes a metric ton of skill to be able to overcome these obstacles and these handicaps that it takes for you to win a game, because all it takes is somebody to be charming, somebody to have a very, very persuasive attitude, and you can get someone to use all of your resources to win you the game, right? Or all of their resources to win you the game, right? And that, to me, is not competitive. And that, honestly, is not sportsmanlike conduct. If you're not risking anything and you can talk your opponent into, and that's so prevalent now, the whole wounded satellite thing now is only happening because we have allowed this to fester for a really long time, and we're creating an echo chamber that basically tells everyone that it's okay to finesse your opponents who are playing with you, especially taking advantage. And I'll get to that in a little bit here too, because like angle shooting is realistically what the problem is that we're having here. Is like politics is akin to angle shooting in this format, right? And that's one of the things that I have an issue with, is that you're using an outside advantage in the game to basically take advantage of a player whose skill level is not as high as yours to benefit you, and you're using that as a tool to win you the game. And that has nothing to do with your Magic the Gathering skill. And that's not fair and balanced. And I get it. It's a hot take. I understand. But I just want everybody to approach this from a place of understanding, and this maybe hopefully get some people to understand the amount of care and love that I have for this format. Because it's not that I'm trying to take something away from anybody. I know a lot of people use these tools and they love these tools and it's in your repertoire, but it's just not competitive. It's not competitive. It's not allowed in sports. It's not allowed in other multiplayer games, right? Like poker, for example, which a lot of these rules that I kind of came up with are akin to the rules in poker. Poker is a multiplayer game, winner takes all, but they don't have the same issues. Angle shooting is not allowed, and it shouldn't be allowed in CEDH, in my opinion. But let's continue. In-game conduct during matches and any behavior that would be considered unsportsmanlike or disruptive, which obviously I agree it needs to be, some very, very, this is a broad definition here, and it should be, hammered down to like what specific behaviors. But, if you see any of those things that will be unsportsmanlike or disruptive, they get brought to the attention of a judge or a TO immediately. The clock will be stopped for your game, and tournament's authorities will resolve your issue so arguing or events of potential conflict do not interfere with gameplay, right? And that's key. Just read it. You got to read the words. The intent's there, right? The TA will resolve your issue so arguing or events of potential conflict do not interfere with gameplay, right? That's important when it comes to competitive integrity, right? Now let me look at my phone real quick. I was having this discussion with some friends earlier today about just this situation, the whole wounded satellite thing, and some people playing with, wounded satellite and, the friends of friends, right? I've been talking about, because this is big news, and like I said, I'm not throwing shade at anybody particularly, right? But I think it needs to be addressed, and I got off my lazy butt this morning and I decided I wanted to put this video out here just at least to just throw my opinions into the ether in the hopes that maybe we'll get somewhere, right? And I know this is going to be a long chatty Cathy read, but just to talk about this, right? This is an experience, a friend of mine who has been playing CEDH here locally in Vegas for a really long time with us. And he has moved since, and he has been experiencing this kind of stuff, right? So I'm just gonna say we're talking about it, we're having a conversation here, and he says he's played against him and others like him, referring to Wounded Satellite, right? I was recently playing in a low stakes tournament with a guy who's friends with him, and it was top 16, and he was assigning people's triggers for them. He had convinced the other two guys to show their hands twice, and he had not revealed anything. When I told him I wasn't gonna politic with him and just make the best play he thinks is best, he hung up the game for 5 minutes trying to argue with me about why I wasn't interested in playing into his game, right? Listen to that. That's happens so often. Like if you know the TikTok meme and everything, I'm a boomer, so, but the TikTok meme, if this happened to you, put a finger down, right? If this kind of stuff has happened to you in a tournament, in a competitive sanctioned tournament, right? Put a finger down. Just, we can relate. And that's where I'm coming from, as a place of empathy, right? This doesn't happen to me too much because I honestly don't engage in much politics. And personally, I hate that I have to use politics to be able to win these tournaments. It's disgusting to me personally. I don't like it. Anybody who's played with me a long period of time knows I don't usually engage in politics. I don't need politics to be able to win a CEDH game. I play my best game, and that's what I've always done. It's just a personal thing to me. I'm competitive. I don't feel like I need the outside tools and everything to be able to win a game. I do my best. I 3v1 people. That's the goal, right? Anyway, so it says that he was assigning people's triggers for them and had to convince the other two guys to show them their hands twice, blah, 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 we were talking about. And so he had been priority bullied at each game and he had been sandbagging interaction. How many times that happened? Put another finger down, right? I could have won on my next turn, but the game wasn't that important. I knew I could see that kid again. He had cast a Ranger Captain, and I allowed it. I showed my buddy standing behind me that I had 4 counter spells, and 3 of them would have countered that. And I let him win because I didn't want him to know I was priority bullying him and using interaction to put his money where his mouth is. But him and his buddies are so unpleasant to play with, right? Then he goes in to say, from now on, him or anyone like him, I'm going to tell the other 2 players at the table that the person's going to try to politic every play and just ignore them and keep playing. And if I feel like insecure or bullied, then I'll back them up, right? Think about where people have to go and think about what people have to do to be able to do this, right? Like he's assigning the person's bowmaster triggers and telling her where he needs to put them. And he says that he should have stopped the game and told him to slow down and let her assign her own triggers. And when he did that, right, he said that he was gaslighting the other person that was playing the bowmaster, right? That's crazy. That's insane to me that that's what we've been reduced to, is creating these conflicts, right? We've been creating and encouraging arguing and conflict to interfere with the gameplay. And that's what holds these games up. That's what makes these things go to time. It's never the gameplay. I shouldn't say never, that's not true. It's rarely the play that holds the games up. It's politics. And every single time you see any one of those really long games that gets drawn out, there's always one of the politic abusers in those pots. Go back and look at all of the tournaments and everything that have been played, and you'll see a lot of the same names. And if you play in any of these tournaments and you grind in any of these tournaments, it's the same names and the same people popping up because they understand and they know if you have a conversation with these people, a candid conversation with these people, they will admit with no shame that they're using this tool to win them the game. And then the discussion that everybody has all the time. You guys want to intentionally draw? You want to intentionally draw? You want to intentionally draw? You want to intentionally draw? ID. Proposing IDs is not competitive. Like if you as a competitor use that to your advantage, it's lame, personally. I'm just gonna say it. It's lame. But we're moving on. Politics and in-game discussions and interference while maintaining the spirit of the format in in-game politics is encouraged during non-tournament play, right? It's encouraged. But in this event, collaborative discussion, and that's the word that I use, will be discouraged, right? Collaborative discussion, and that's the key. If you're playing CEDH, you are trying to win and you are trying to kill everybody else in the pod. Collaborating, it's a conflict of interest. It's a conflict of interest. Anybody who tries to collaborate with the people to beat the whole table, instead of trying to beat the whole table, is not generally going to be the winner, unless you live in an environment and you're playing in an environment where you can utilize your opponent's resources to win you the game, which in my opinion is not competitive. It's the cards and your play lines that should dictate how the game is played, not your ability to finesse somebody into winning the game for you. Okay, that's just how I feel. In an effort to ensure skill will warrant a player's victory, no players are allowed to verbally collaborate during matches. That's a little harsh, but that's not the intention. And I'll get to that if you guys want to have a discussion. I think you should have discussions about this, right? Lines of play are able to be discussed, certainly, right? Lines of play you can certainly discuss. And any game state related to discussions and banter is certainly allowed also. If you're talking about the game state, you're talking about anything else, certainly you can have that because you're just having a conversation and you're not halting anybody's gameplay, right? However, or halting or influencing anybody's gameplay. However, no verbal collaborations will be allowed and a judge or TO should be called and game infractions should be assessed, right? Verbal collaborations. It's a lot of this stuff is broad. And certainly I think that there's probably room in this new world of CEDH where we can find a middle ground to make it a little bit more fair, balanced, and competitively, sound, right? Will be allowed, and a TO will be called, blah, blah, blah. Okay. This includes interference in a player's play by encouraging them to make plays from any players currently not engaged in any gameplay, a la no abilities, cards on the stack, etc., right? So if you don't have a resource that you are risking on the stack or, you're not using anything, you should be out the hand. When you're playing poker, for example, right? You got chips in the middle in the pot. You can talk all day. You can have discussions about what's going on and everything, right? But if you are outside, you've already folded your hand. What's the point? Why do you need to talk? You don't have any say-so. You don't have anything to say. At that point, you are certainly using your mouth as an advantage to try to gain an advantage in a game, in a situation, in a play that you don't belong in, right? Just personally, right? And then some adjustments to the existing rules, sorry, my bad. Some direct rules will naturally have to be adjusted due to competitive multiplayer not being officially supported. These rules, blah, 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 blah. And then turns and time during turns. So players will have a total of 4 minutes of active player time. So when you're in that final round, stop clocks come out when you're in that final round, right? And every person has a total of 4 minutes that is not judge called time to conclude your turns, right? Each of those each of those 2 rounds, right? Those 2 rounds that go around, you have a total of 4 minutes to complete your turn, period, right? Each player in turns will be clocked once their turn starts, and while that clock is active, players will continue to play as normal. If spells or abilities are on the stack, and a 1 minute buffer will be added to each subsequent ability or spell being played to the stack to buffer the 4 minutes active player has to conclude their turn, right? Now that's a little weird the way that I put that, but this rule will also be applied during sudden death. I think there's some room for that, but the whole intent of it is that at the end of the game, everybody is making those crucial plays and everybody's doing everything that they need to do to make those crucial plays, right? And you should, and I think this is probably too loud. Hold on, let me double check. Hold on a second. All right, my bad. A little bit of noise issue and everything, so I had to cut the video. We're gonna go back into the AR 2.1 real quick. The turns and time during time, right? Time. Players have a total of 4 minutes of active player time to conclude their turns. Each player in turns will be clocked once their turn starts, and while that clock is active, players will continue to play as normal. If spells or abilities are on the stack, 1 minute buffer will be added to each subsequent ability or spell being placed on the stack to buffer the 4 minutes the active player has to conclude their turn. This rule will also be applied during sudden death, right? So the goal and the idea behind this was to obviously speed the gameplay along and get you to understand that you have 4 minutes, but you buffer the time if you're playing an additional spell, you're making game actions and everything to speed it along, right? It doesn't take you 1 whole minute to cast a spell. Once you resolve the stack, goes back to normal. That buffer is gone and everything. You don't have to worry about it, but that's the whole point. You're progressing the game state. You're giving an add and allow more time and everything for the people who may need to put other stuff on the stack to have those game discussions and everything like that to occur and to keep them to a minimum because everybody is making the game attempts and their win attempts and they're taking the game actions to try to finish that game and to close that game out, which I believe more time should be added for that if you need it to speed it along, right? But the whole point of sudden death, the whole point of time is to get players to conclude their turns because you should be near the end. And if there wasn't incessant politics and, random conversation and random stuff happening during these games to halt the game actions. And like I said, if you just read the words, you pay attention to the words, a lot of this stuff goes around in a circle with the intention to make sure that the games are being concluded quickly, right? Or in a timely manner, I should say, to make sure that it's fair and balanced and the gameplay is not being held up by people trying to take advantage of other players, and it's fair. Everybody gets the same rules. Everybody follows the same rules, and it goes smoothly. It's only when people are bucking at the trend and the last guard of people who are trying to keep politics in the competitive aspect of EDH. And I want you to really just keep that in mind. I'm not calling for all politics in Commander or regular EDH to go away. I think that's an integral and fun part of the game. I just don't believe that it belongs in a competitive environment with the intention of all players there to be the winners of a prize. I just don't think it belongs. But anyway, the AR 2.2 and the players exited in the game at instant speed with the scooping and all that stuff, that's mostly been addressed, and I don't think we have that issue too much. But I still do like the snapshot part and everything happening here to, you know, prevent people scooping, you know, with spite scooping and things like that. I'm going to leave the document in the comments, right? I'm going to leave the link to this in the comments. I really, truly just think that everybody should just take a couple minutes and go over this and to just look at the current state, especially if you're a tournament organizer or if you're somebody who, you know, has interests of doing this. I personally really want to try an event with some rules like this. And I think if we all got together to really just sit down and to just massage this into the way that we're already doing tournaments. Like, obviously don't change anything here for the rest of this tournament season, right? But going into the next tournament season, I truly think that some discussion needs to be had. And we really, truly do have to implement some rules that take this stuff out of the equation. Because let's just call a spade a spade. The only reason why the stuff that happened with, what's his name, Wounded Satellite, I was going to say Max P, shout out to Max P. He seems like he's a pretty cool dude. The only reason why that this kind of stuff happens in the tournament with people like this guy and people like him is only because people allow it to happen. That's really it. We are creating and breeding an environment for this to happen in this competitive environment, and it only exists because the doors are open. I just think we should close some doors and open some other doors up, and let's just start walking towards and going through the door of having some competitive integrity and sportsmanlike conduct and behavior in these bigger events, right? That's all I'm trying to say, realistically. Now, I know I've been droning on for a really long time. I don't even know how long this video is gonna be by the time I'm done recording this video. But the main thing that I want people to take away from this, and the main thing that I would love to see happen from both the casual players, I shouldn't say both, but including the casual players, the competitive tournament grinders, and the tournament organizers, is to just take an honest reflection and introspection of how these tournaments go, right? And let's just all try to collaboratively, as a community, do better, be better, and try to make this format that we all know and love better. That's it. That's all I got.